Du-Won stared at his computer screen, his coffee getting cold beside him. The lad was quiet at 3 a.m., just how he liked it. The soft hum of machines and the gentle whirring of his computer fan were his only companions. As he looked at the DNA scan results for the 100th time, his hands began to shake. "This can't be right," he whispered to himself, adjusting his glasses. He had been studying human DNA for 15 years at the Sewell Advanced Genetics Institute, but he had never seen anything like this before. The screen showed long strings of genetic code, normal enough at first glance, but scattered throughout were strange markers, too regular to be random, too precise to be natural. They looked almost like comments in a computer program, marking certain sections of DNA as deprecated. Do-Won took another sip of his cold coffee and grimaced. He had found the first marker 2 weeks ago while studying genetic diseases. At first, he thought it was a mistake in the testing equipment, but after checking different samples from different people, he found the same markers everywhere. He clicked through his folders, opening more test results. Every human sample he had tested showed the same pattern. These markers appeared in the exact same places in everyone's DNA, like someone had gone through and labeled certain parts as old or unused. The sound of the lab door opening made him jump. The motion-sensing lights flickered on, revealing Ho-Rin, his fellow researcher, standing in the doorway with 2 fresh cups of coffee. "I thought I'd find you here," she said, walking over to his desk. "You missed dinner again." Do-Won took the coffee gratefully. "Ho-Rin, look at this," he said, pointing to his screen. "Tell me I'm not going crazy." She leaned in, her forehead wrinkling as she studied the display. "Are those tags in the DNA?" she asked, setting her coffee down and pulling up a chair. "Yes, and they're everywhere. In every sample. In every person," Do-Won said, clicking through more results. "See these markers? They're like signposts saying deprecated, like in old computer code when programmers mark parts that aren't used anymore." Ho-Rin's eyes widened as she looked through the data. "But that's impossible. DNA doesn't work like that. It can't be labeled or marked like computer code." "I know," Do-Won said, running his hands through his messy hair. "But look at this." He opened a comparison view showing DNA samples from 10 different people. The markers are identical in every sample. Same location, same pattern. This isn't random mutation. Ho-Rin pulled out her tablet and started taking notes. "What sections are they marking?" "That's the strange part," Do-Won said, zooming in on one of the marked sections. "These parts of our DNA don't seem to do anything. They're what we usually call junk DNA, except they're not random. They're perfectly structured, just switched off, like disabled code in a program," Ho-Rin whispered. "Exactly," Do-Won said, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. "But here's what really keeps me up at night. Some of these marked sections show signs of being far more complex than our active DNA. It's as if..." "As if what?" "As if someone went through human DNA and deliberately turned off certain parts. Parts that might have done something important." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the discovery hanging in the air. The quiet was broken by the beeping of another machine finishing its analysis. "We need to run more tests," Ho-Rin said finally, her voice firm. "And we need to keep this quiet until we understand what we're looking at." Do-Won nodded, already pulling up more samples to analyze. "Whatever this is, Ho-Rin, I don't think our textbooks prepared us for it. This changes everything we thought we knew about human evolution." As the sun began to rise over Seoul, casting long shadows through the lab windows, the 2 scientists continued their work, unaware that they had just stumbled upon humanity's biggest secret, one that would soon turn their world upside down. 3 days had passed since their late-night discovery. Do-Won and Ho-Rin had barely left the lab, taking turns napping on the break room couch. Empty coffee cups and takeout containers littered their desks, evidence of their endless work hours. "Look at this section here," Ho-Rin said, pointing to her screen. She had dark circles under her eyes, but they sparkled with excitement. This deprecated segment contains instructions for protein structures we've never seen before. Do-Won rolled his chair over to her desk. What kind of proteins? That's the thing, she said, pulling up a 3D model. Based on these sequences, they would create proteins that could repair DNA damage almost instantly. It's like having a built-in healing factor. That's impossible, Do-Won said, but his voice lacked conviction. After what they'd found in the past few days, he wasn't sure what was impossible anymore. Their quiet discussion was interrupted by quick footsteps. Jae-ho, their youngest team member, burst into the lab, waving a tablet. "You need to see this," he said, his face flushed with excitement. "I was running those broader genetic comparisons you asked for." He placed his tablet on the desk between them. "I compared our marked sequences with every species in our database. Nothing matched, which isn't surprising. But then I checked against the ancient human DNA samples we have." Do-Won and Harin leaned forward as Jae-ho pulled up his results. "The markers aren't in any of the ancient samples," Jae-ho said. "They just appear suddenly in human DNA around 12,000 years ago." Harin sat back in her chair, her face pale. "That's impossible. Changes like this don't just appear in an entire species overnight. Unless someone put them there," Do-Won said quietly. The room fell silent as they considered the implications. The only sound was the gentle hum of the lab equipment. "There's more," Jae-ho said, swiping to another screen. "I found patterns in the deprecated sections. They're not random. They're grouped into categories, like a software update log." He pointed to different sections of code. "See these markers? They're like version numbers. And look at the complexity of the deprecated code compared to our active DNA." Do-Won studied the screen, his mouth going dry. "Our active DNA looks primitive compared to these sections. It's like comparing a bicycle to a spaceship." "But why?" Harin asked, rubbing her temples. "Why would anyone deliberately downgrade human DNA? And how did they do it to the entire species?" Before anyone could answer, a notification popped up on all their screens. New test results were ready. "I ran some simulations," Jae-ho explained, pulling up the data, "trying to figure out what these deprecated sections might do if they were active. The computer's been processing it for 2 days." The three scientists stared at the results in silence. The simulation showed impossible things: enhanced strength, perfect memory, accelerated healing, improved spatial awareness, and abilities that seemed more at home in science fiction than a genetics lab. "We need to test this," Jae-ho said eagerly. "We could try activating a small section in a controlled environment." "No," Harin said firmly. "We don't know enough yet. This is too big, too dangerous." Do-Won nodded in agreement. "We need to understand more first. Why were these abilities turned off? What happened 12,000 years ago? And who did this to us?" Harin added softly. As if in answer to her question, Do-Won's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and frowned. "The institute director wants to see us now. Says we have some important visitors interested in our recent work." They looked at each other nervously. They hadn't told anyone about their discovery yet. "How do they know?" Jae-ho whispered. "I don't know," Do-Won said, standing up. "But I have a feeling we're about to find out." As they walked to the director's office, none of them spoke. Each was lost in thought, wondering the same thing. Had they discovered something they weren't supposed to find? The meeting with the director had been strange. Do-Won couldn't stop thinking about it as he worked late in the lab that evening. The visitors had been oddly interested in their research, asking specific questions about the deprecated DNA sections, as if they already knew what to look for. Jae-ho was still there too, running more tests on the mysterious genetic markers. He had been quiet since the meeting, more focused than usual. "I don't like this," Do-Won said, breaking the silence. "Those visitors knew too much. We never published our findings." Jae-ho nodded but didn't look up from his work. He was preparing another test sample, carefully mixing chemicals in a small tube. His hands were steady, but Do-Won noticed he was sweating. "What are you working on?" Do-Won asked, walking over to Jaiho's station. "Just testing a theory," Jaiho said quickly, too quickly. "Nothing important." Do-Won looked at Jaiho's screen and his eyes widened. "Are you trying to activate one of the deprecated sections?" We agreed it was too dangerous. Before Jaiho could answer, his hand slipped. The tube fell, spilling its contents. Some of the liquid splashed onto his arm. "No!" Do-Won shouted, rushing to the emergency shower. But Jaiho didn't move. "It's too late," Jaiho said calmly, watching the spot where the liquid had touched his skin. "I already did it an hour ago. This was just colored water to see if you'd notice." Do-Won stared at him in shock. What did you do?" "I created a protein sequence that matches one of the deprecated patterns," Jaiho explained. "The one that looked like it affected memory and processing speed. I had to know, Do-Won. We had to know." "We need to get you to a hospital," Do-Won said, reaching for his phone. "No, wait," Jaiho said. "Look at this first." He walked to the computer and started typing. His fingers moved faster than Do-Won had ever seen, numbers and calculations appearing on the screen at an impossible speed. "The formula for the protein was complex," Jaiho said, still typing. "But I can see it all now, every detail. My mind, it's like a fog has lifted. I can remember everything I've ever read, every conversation I've ever had." Do-Won watched in amazement as Jaiho solved complex genetic equations in seconds, problems that would normally take hours. "It's not just memory," Jaiho continued, his eyes bright with excitement. "I can think faster, understand things better. It's like my brain was running at 10% before, and now it's at full power." Suddenly, Jaiho gasped and grabbed his head. Do-Won rushed to his side. "Jaiho, what's wrong?" "So much information," Jaiho whispered. "Too much, too fast." He fell to his knees, his nose starting to bleed. Do-Won caught him before he hit the floor. "Stay with me, Jaiho." Do-Won pulled out his phone to call for help, but Jaiho grabbed his wrist. "No, hospitals," Jaiho said through gritted teeth. "Call Horin. She needs to see this." 20 minutes later, Horin burst into the lab. By then, Jaiho's nose had stopped bleeding, and he was sitting calmly at his computer, still typing at superhuman speed. "What have you done?" she whispered, looking at the screens full of solved equations and complex genetic models. "What our ancestors did," Jaiho said, not looking away from his work. "I woke up a small part of what we used to be. And now I understand why they turned it off." "Why?" Do-Won asked. Jaiho finally turned to face them, his eyes filled with a wisdom that hadn't been there before. "Because we weren't ready. The power, it's too much, too dangerous. But now that it's awake, I can feel it spreading. The protein isn't just affecting my brain anymore. It's affecting everything. And I don't think we can stop it." As if to prove his point, the cut on his arm from the earlier spill healed before their eyes, leaving not even a scar. "What do we do now?" Horin asked, her voice shaking. "Now," Jaiho said, "we prepare for what comes next, because I'm just the first. There will be others. And not everyone will want to use this power wisely." News travels fast in the scientific world, even when you try to keep things quiet. 1 week after Jaiho's transformation, Do-Won sat in a crowded conference room, facing representatives from research institutes around the world. Jaiho and Horin sat beside him, both looking uncomfortable. "Show them," Do-Won said softly to Jaiho. Jaiho stood up and walked to the whiteboard. He picked up 4 markers and began writing with both hands, solving complex equations simultaneously while speaking clearly to the audience. The room fell silent except for the squeak of markers on the board. "As you can see," Jaiho said, writing with incredible speed, The deprecated sections in our DNA contain instructions for abilities we never knew humans could have. My own activation was accidental, but the results are undeniable. The crowd watched in amazement as he filled board after board with calculations, never pausing or making a mistake. A woman in the front row filmed everything on her phone, her hands shaking. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "No," Jai-Ho replied, still writing. "It's just forgotten." The door opened, and 3 new people entered the room. They looked human, but something about their movement seemed off. Do-Won noticed that they didn't blink enough, and their steps were too perfect, too measured. "This meeting is now classified," one of them announced. "All recording devices must be turned off. Anyone who is not directly involved in the research must leave." The room erupted in protests, but security guards appeared at the doors. Within minutes, only Do-Won, Ha-Rin, Jai-Ho, and a few key scientists remained, along with the 3 strange visitors. "We represent the Galactic Council," the tallest visitor said once the room was secure. "We've been monitoring your planet for a long time, and this development has caught our attention." Ha-Rin grabbed Do-Won's hand under the table. His palm was sweaty, but he squeezed back reassuringly. "You're aliens?" Jai-Ho asked, studying them with his enhanced perception. "Your disguises are good, but your movements give you away." The visitors exchanged glances. "Yes," the female visitor admitted. "We are not human, though we try to appear so. We are here because your discovery poses a significant risk." "Risk to whom?" Do-Won asked. "To everyone," the 3rd visitor said. "Those deprecated sections in human DNA were locked away for a reason. Your species was once problematic." "Problematic how?" Ha-Rin demanded. "That information is classified," the tall visitor said quickly. "What matters now is containing this situation. The young one's activation cannot be undone, but we can prevent others from following the same path." Jai-Ho stepped forward. "You're afraid," he said, his enhanced mind picking up subtle signs in their body language. "Not of what we are now, but of what we might remember." The visitor's perfect composure cracked slightly. The female visitor's hand twitched toward a hidden pocket. "Your species made a choice long ago," she said. "It was the right choice. Awakening these abilities could destabilize the entire galaxy." "It's our choice to make," Do-Won said, standing up. "This is our DNA, our heritage. And our planet," Ha-Rin added, also rising. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the building. The female visitor pulled out a strange device, checking its readings. "More activations," she said to her companions, "scattered throughout the city. The protein sequence has somehow spread." Jai-Ho smiled. "I told you it was spreading. I can feel them, others like me, waking up. The knowledge, the memories, they're coming back too." The visitors moved toward the door. "This meeting is over. We'll be in touch with your governments. Do not leave the city." As they left, Do-Won turned to Jai-Ho. "What did you mean about memories coming back?" "I see fragments when I sleep," Jai-Ho said. "Memories that aren't mine, but are somehow stored in those deprecated sections. Memories of who we used to be." He paused, looking out the window at the city below. "And I think I know why we chose to forget." That night, Do-Won couldn't sleep. He sat in his lab, watching news reports about strange incidents across Seoul. People were showing unusual abilities: perfect memory, incredible strength, rapid healing. It was happening just as Jai-Ho had predicted. The door opened, and a new person walked in. Do-Won recognized him as Ta-Yang, one of the visiting scientists from the morning meeting. Something seemed different about him now. "You're one of them, aren't you?" Do-Won asked. "An alien?" Ta-Yang nodded. "Yes, but I'm not with the Galactic Council. I'm here to help." He pulled up a chair and sat down. "The Council isn't telling you the whole truth." Ha-Rin walked in just then, carrying fresh coffee. She stopped when she saw Ta-Yang but relaxed when Do-Won nodded at her. "Tell us the truth then," she said, setting down the coffee cups. Your species, Tai Yang began, was once the most advanced in the galaxy. Humans didn't evolve on Earth. You came here. You chose this planet as your new home. That's impossible, Herin whispered. Is it? Tai Yang pulled out a small device and projected a hologram. It showed star maps and ancient structures that looked far too advanced to be human-made. These are human buildings on other worlds, built over 12,000 years ago. Do-1 stared at the images. If this is true, why did we leave? Why did we choose to forget? There was a war, Tai Yang said. Your people were powerful, too powerful. Some wanted to rule the galaxy, others wanted to protect freedom. The war nearly destroyed everything. Jai-Ho walked in, his enhanced senses having heard their conversation from down the hall. The memories, he said. I've been seeing them in my dreams. Battles among the stars, ships larger than cities, powers that could reshape worlds. Tai Yang nodded. The good humans won the war, but at a terrible cost. They saw what unlimited power had done to their species, so they made a choice. They deprecated their own DNA, Do-1 realized. They locked away their powers and chose to start over. Yes, Tai Yang said. They created the markers in your DNA, turning off the most dangerous abilities. They erased their advanced technology and chose to rebuild their civilization from scratch, hoping you would evolve differently this time. But they left the code there, Herin said. Why not delete it completely? Because they hoped one day, when humanity was ready, you would find it again. They left clues, watchers like me, to help guide you when the time came. Suddenly, Jai-Ho grabbed his head. More memories. They're coming faster now. I can see the ships, the worlds we built, the choices we made. Do-1 helped Jai-Ho to a chair. Are you saying more people will start remembering? Not just getting the abilities, but actually remembering our past. Yes, Tai Yang said. The protein Jai-Ho created isn't just activating abilities. It's unlocking the stored memories in your deprecated DNA. Your ancestors encoded their experiences into your genes, hoping their descendants would learn from their mistakes. The Council is afraid, Herin realized. They're afraid we'll remember everything and become powerful again. Some council members want to stop this at any cost, Tai Yang warned. Others want to help guide humanity's awakening. That's why I'm here. But we don't have much time. Why? Do-1 asked. Because the council's ships are already on their way to Earth. They'll be here in 3 days, and they haven't decided whether to help humanity remember its past. Tai Yang paused, his face grim. Or to make sure you forget forever this time. Jai-Ho stood up, his eyes clear despite the flood of ancient memories. Then we have 3 days to prove that humanity deserves to remember who we really are. Looking at the hologram of humanity's forgotten cities among the stars, Do-1 felt a strange mix of fear and hope. Their past was both a warning and a promise. They just had to figure out which path to take. The next morning, Do-1 and his team found their lab sealed off. Security guards stood at every entrance, and a new sign read Restricted Area. Government authorization required. This isn't good, Herin said as they stood in the hallway, watching more guards arrive. A tall man in a black suit walked toward them. Director Hyun-Ki, head of a government agency none of them had heard of before today. Dr. Do-1, he said with a cold smile. Your team's work is now under government control. Please come with me. And if we refuse? Do-1 asked. That would be unwise. Hyun-Ki gestured, and more agents appeared behind them. We need to contain this situation before it gets out of hand. Jai-Ho stepped forward, his enhanced senses picking up details others missed. They're not regular government agents, he whispered to Do-1. Some of them aren't even breathing. Before anyone could react, Tai Yang appeared at the end of the hallway. Now, he shouted. The lights went out. In the darkness, Tai Yang moved with impossible speed, pushing past the agents and grabbing Do-1's team. Run. They ran through the dark hallways, guided by Jaiho's enhanced vision. Behind them, they heard shouts and the sound of weapons being drawn. In here, Tai Yang pulled them into a maintenance room and pressed his hand against the wall. A hidden door slid open. Quick! They hurried through the secret passage, emerging in an underground parking garage. A van waited with its engine running. "Get in," Tai Yang said, opening the door. "We have a safe place." As they drove through Seoul's busy streets, Do-won noticed more strange incidents. People lifting cars to rescue trapped children. A woman catching a falling construction worker by jumping 10 stories high. The activation was spreading faster. "The protein sequence has gone viral," Jaiho said, watching the scenes pass by. "It's triggering dormant genes in more and more people. And with the genes, the memories are awakening too. That's why Hyun-ki wanted to contain us," Herin realized. "They can't stop it now, can they?" "No," Tai Yang said, turning down a quiet street. "The Council's agents, like Hyun-ki, have been on Earth for centuries, making sure humans didn't discover their true potential. But they never expected the activation to spread like this." The van stopped at an old warehouse. Inside, they found advanced technology hidden behind fake walls. Screens showed news from around the world. More people were developing abilities everywhere. "This has been my base for 50 years, Tai Yang explained. "I'm part of a group that believes humanity deserves to remember its past and choose its own future." "Why help us?" Do-won asked. "Because I was there, 12,000 years ago. I saw your species make the noble choice to start over rather than risk becoming tyrants. That kind of wisdom deserves a second chance." Suddenly, all the screens flickered. A news alert showed massive ships appearing in the sky over major cities. "They're early," Tai Yang said, his face worried. "The council ships weren't supposed to arrive for 2 more days." "What do they want?" Herin asked. "To make a choice," Jaiho said, his eyes distant as more ancient memories surfaced. "Either help guide humanity's awakening, or," he paused, "or use their weapons to permanently delete the deprecated sections from all human DNA." "They can do that?" Do-won asked, horrified. "Yes," Tai Yang confirmed. "Their weapons can rewrite the genetic code of every human on Earth at once. You would lose not just the abilities, but any chance of ever regaining them." "Then we have to stop them," Herin said firmly. "How?" Do-won asked. "We're just scientists." Jaiho smiled, his eyes glowing slightly with awakened power. "No, we're more than that now. We're humanity's best chance at remembering who we really are. And I think I know how we can prove we deserve that chance." The next morning, Do-won and his team found their lab sealed off. Security guards stood at every entrance, and a new sign read, "Restricted Area. Government authorization required." "This isn't good," Herin said as they stood in the hallway, watching more guards arrive. A tall man in a black suit walked toward them. Director Hyun-ki, head of a government agency none of them had heard of before today. "Dr. Do-won," he said with a cold smile, "your team's work is now under government control. Please come with me." "And if we refuse?" Do-won asked. "That would be unwise." Hyun-ki gestured, and more agents appeared behind them. "We need to contain this situation before it gets out of hand." Jaiho stepped forward, his enhanced senses picking up details others missed. "They're not regular government agents," he whispered to Do-won. "Some of them aren't even breathing." Before anyone could react, Tai Yang appeared at the end of the hallway. "Now," he shouted. The lights went out. In the darkness, Tai Yang moved with impossible speed, pushing past the agents and grabbing Do-won's team. "Run." They ran through the dark hallways, guided by Jaiho's enhanced vision. Behind them, they heard shouts and the sound of weapons being drawn. In here, Tai Yang pulled them into a maintenance room and pressed his hand against the wall. A hidden door slid open. Quick! They hurried through the secret passage, Emerging in an underground parking garage, a van waited with its engine running. "Get in," Tai Yang said, opening the door. "We have a safe place." As they drove through Seoul's busy streets, Do-won noticed more strange incidents. People lifting cars to rescue trapped children. A woman catching a falling construction worker by jumping 10 stories high. The activation was spreading faster. "The protein sequence has gone viral," Jae-ho said, watching the scenes pass by. "It's triggering dormant genes in more and more people. And with the genes, the memories are awakening too. That's why Hyun-ki wanted to contain us," Hae-rin realized. "They can't stop it now, can they?" "No," Tai Yang said, turning down a quiet street. "The Council's agents, like Hyun-ki, have been on Earth for centuries, making sure humans didn't discover their true potential. But they never expected the activation to spread like this." The van stopped at an old warehouse. Inside, they found advanced technology hidden behind fake walls. Screens showed news from around the world. More people were developing abilities everywhere. "This has been my base for 50 years, Tai Yang explained. "I'm part of a group that believes humanity deserves to remember its past and choose its own future." "Why help us?" Do-won asked. "Because I was there, 12,000 years ago. I saw your species make the noble choice to start over rather than risk becoming tyrants. That kind of wisdom deserves a second chance." Suddenly, all the screens flickered. A news alert showed massive ships appearing in the sky over major cities. "They're early," Tai Yang said, his face worried. "The Council ships weren't supposed to arrive for 2 more days." "What do they want?" Hae-rin asked. "To make a choice," Jae-ho said, his eyes distant as more ancient memories surfaced. "Either help guide humanity's awakening or—" He paused, "or use their weapons to permanently delete the deprecated sections from all human DNA." "They can do that?" Do-won asked, horrified. "Yes," Tai Yang confirmed. "Their weapons can rewrite the genetic code of every human on Earth at once. You would lose not just the abilities, but any chance of ever regaining them." "Then we have to stop them," Hae-rin said firmly. "How?" Do-won asked. "We're just scientists." Jae-ho smiled, his eyes glowing slightly with awakened power. "No, we're more than that now. We're humanity's best chance at remembering who we really are. And I think I know how we can prove we deserve that chance." Tai Yang led them deeper into his base, past the main control room to a hidden chamber. Inside, they found something that made them all stop and stare, a piece of technology that looked both ancient and advanced at the same time. "This is a memory core," Tai Yang said, touching the glowing device. "Your ancestors left several of them around the planet. They contain the complete history of humanity. Not just records, but actual memories preserved in crystal data structures." "Why show us this now?" Do-won asked. "Because it's time you knew everything." Tai Yang activated the device. The room filled with holographic images showing Earth's true history. They saw great ships crossing the stars. Humans, powerful and wise, helping young civilizations grow. They watched as humanity built wonders across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as guardians and teachers. "We were beautiful once," Hae-rin whispered, watching the images. Then the images changed, showing the beginning of the war. Some humans had grown proud, believing they deserved to rule rather than protect. They saw battles that scarred planets, weapons that could destroy stars, powers that could reshape reality itself. "The war lasted 100 years, Tai Yang explained. "Billions died. Entire species were lost. The galaxy still bears the scars." Jae-ho watched with tears in his eyes as more of his own awakened memories matched the images they were seeing. "But we won. The Guardians won against those who would be conquerors." "Yes," Tai Yang said, "but victory came at a terrible price. The weapons used in the war had damaged the fabric of space-time itself. The galaxy was wounded, bleeding energy in ways that could have destroyed everything." The next images showed a massive gathering. thousands of ships surrounding Earth, but not in battle. It was a council, a meeting of all surviving humans. Your ancestors faced a choice, Tai Yang continued. Their powers could be used to heal the damage to the galaxy, but doing so would require sacrificing much of their advanced abilities. Some wanted to find another way, but the wisest among them saw an opportunity. An opportunity for what? One asked. To start over, to give humanity a chance to evolve again. But this time with the wisdom of their mistakes encoded in their very DNA. They used the last of their greatest powers to heal the galaxy's wounds. Then, they modified their own DNA, creating the deprecated sections. The final images showed humans voluntarily giving up their advanced technology, choosing to begin again as simple farmers and hunters on Earth. They didn't just lock away their powers, Heron realized. They turned them into a test. Yes, Tai Yang smiled. The deprecated sections were designed to reactivate only when humanity had advanced enough to discover them naturally, and the memories were encoded to return slowly, teaching wisdom along with power. Jai-Ho stood up straighter. That's why the awakened humans aren't using their powers to take control. The memories aren't just showing us what we could do. They're reminding us what we chose not to do. Suddenly, the base's alarms went off. Heron rushed to check the monitors. The council ships are powering up their weapons, she reported. They're going to try to remove the deprecated sections by force. They don't understand, Jai-Ho said. They think we'll repeat our mistakes, but they haven't seen what I've seen in the memories. We're not the same as before. We're better. How can we prove it to them? One asked. Tai Yang looked at the memory core, then at the awakened humans around him. There might be a way. The core contains one last message from your ancestors, a way to prove humanity is ready to remember. But using it will be dangerous. What kind of message? Heron asked. A choice, Tai Yang said. The same choice your ancestors faced, and how you make it will determine whether humanity remembers its true heritage or forgets forever. The council ships hung in the sky like dark stars, their weapons ready to fire. Inside Tai Yang's base, Du-1 and his team gathered around the memory core, watching as it revealed humanity's final test. Your ancestors left a choice, Tai Yang explained, his hands moving over the core's controls. A way to prove humanity is ready to remember. The core projected an image of two crystals, one blue, one red, both pulsed with energy. The blue crystal contains the full power of your ancestors, Tai Yang said. All their knowledge, all their abilities, instantly restored to every human on Earth. The red crystal can heal the damage the Council's weapons would do, protecting Earth, but leaving humanity as they are now. That's the choice, Heron asked. Power or protection? No, Jai-Ho said, his enhanced mind seeing deeper. It's not that simple. Tell them the rest, Tai Yang. Tai Yang nodded. The blue crystal's power comes at a cost. Using it would drain energy from the galaxy's healing, reopening the wounds from the ancient war. You could have your full power back, but it would harm countless other worlds. Do-1 looked at the crystals. And the red one. It would protect Earth and prove to the Council that humanity has learned wisdom. But you would have to give up the deprecated sections forever, choosing to remain as you are now. The base shook as the Council ships moved closer. On the screens, they could see Hyun-Ki preparing to give the order to fire. We have to choose now, Heron said. Jai-Ho closed his eyes, accessing the ancient memories flowing through his mind. Our ancestors faced this same choice: power or wisdom, control or protection. Do-1 looked around the room at the awakened humans. Some were using their new abilities to keep the base's systems running, others to heal the injured. None had tried to take control or gain power over others. We don't need the blue crystal, he said finally. We don't need all our old power back. But without it, we'll stay limited, someone in the room argued. Will we? Heron asked. Look at what we've achieved as we are. Look at how far we've come. Our ancestors didn't just limit us. They gave us a chance to grow in a new way. Jaiho stepped forward. The memories show me what we were, but they also show me what we can be. We don't have to choose between power and wisdom this time. We already have both. Do-Won picked up the red crystal. Our ancestors chose to give up their power to protect others. Now we have the same choice. And I think we should make the same decision they did. The room fell silent. Then, one by one, the awakened humans nodded. They had seen the memories, felt the wisdom of their ancestors. They understood. Do-Won raised the crystal. Outside, the council ships prepared to fire. "Wait," Tai Yang said. "Are you sure? This choice can't be undone." "We're sure," Herin said, placing her hand over Do-Won's. "We choose to protect, not to rule, just like our ancestors did." Jaiho added his hand, and others followed. The crystal began to glow. "Together," Do-Won said. They activated the crystal. Red light filled the sky, surrounding Earth in a protective shield. The council ship's weapons fired but couldn't penetrate it. On the screens, they saw Hyunki's face change from anger to surprise, then understanding. The council ships powered down their weapons. "They understand now," Tai Yang said. "You've proven humanity has truly learned from its past." "Not just learned," Jaiho said, smiling as the red light faded. "We've chosen our own path. We don't need the deprecated powers of our ancestors. We'll build our own future, one step at a time." Do-Won looked out at the city where ordinary humans were doing extraordinary things, not with ancient powers, but with wisdom, compassion, and choice. "Maybe that's what our ancestors hoped for all along," he said. "Not that we would remember what we were, but that we would choose what we could become."